All right. Hello. My name is Julia, and I have to admit I'm feeling a little bit vulnerable in creating this video today because it is one that has been in the back of my mind for almost 2 months now. Someone that I had been speaking with had asked me to dive a little bit deeper into sharing my experiences with spirituality and the experiences that I've had sitting in ceremony with ayahuasca and the different just spiritual awakening that I have had in my life and how that journey has unfolded for me. And it's interesting because it's always an ongoing process. And even though the experiences that I had, say, in that first ayahuasca that I sat in may have been the catalyst for these other smaller awakenings that I've now experienced since that first ceremony almost 5 or 6 years ago. But it's not to say that that ceremony was the most powerful, because throughout these 5 or 6 years, I've had so many different experiences that have allowed me to wake up more fully to the potential that I have within me. I've been able to wake up more fully to the love that I have within me that I can offer both to myself and to others. And so even though it may have seemed like a small question to simply ask, hey, share some of your spiritual experiences and share some of what you've learned, but it really is challenging to break it down into one thing or one experience that I have had, because each plant medicine ceremony that I've sat in, each training that I've taken, each conversation that I have with someone, whether it's through coaching or EFT or Reiki or Ho'oponopono or any of these different spiritual practices that I choose to take on, they all offer me different insights and new levels of awareness that just add on to this bigger picture. So as much as I could sit down and tell you about one specific ceremony that I had and what I was able to release or purge or the insights that I had around that, what I'm feeling most called to share is the overall theme, or at least one of them, that I have noticed since I've started this process of awakening, or this process of self-actualization, or just becoming the best version of myself. Because really, that is what I'm striving for right now. That is what I am aiming to become, is the most loving, most generous, giving, thoughtful, kind, powerful, strong version of myself, whether you choose to see that as my goddess version, my higher self, my acting as though I'm connecting with that inner queen or the inner king that you may have inside of you. It's just really connecting with the most powerful version of ourselves. And so the thing that I have recognized and that has carried through these different ceremonies, these different spiritual awakening practices that I have experienced, is just how empowering it is to let go of the judgments and to take full responsibility for everything that happens in my life, because that is where I can truly step into my power. I can truly start to create the change that I want. I can truly start to feel empowered and in control in my life, even though I'm never completely in control. That's not something that I really take on, because I know now that there is a higher power. There is something bigger than me that is governing what happens in life, even though I may be thinking that I'm making the decision in this moment, or doing something, like thinking that I'm deciding to do this thing. But in the grand scheme of things, I know that everything is happening the way it's supposed to be. And whether or not I'm actually making that decision, or if I'm just playing out the role that I chose to take on when I came to this earth, I cannot fully say. But I'm willing to play the game and take on that role to the best of my ability, and to just continue showing up and being a powerful version of myself. Okay, so that was a bit of a mouthful. But I also want to share a little of this golden thread that has shown up for me. So in my first ayahuasca ceremony that I participated in, one of the bigger messages that I got was around aligning my life, around really paying homage to this body, this temple that I have been given. I just kept getting all of these messages around like letting go of impulsive behavior, whether it's eating sugar or just like not meditating, not taking care of my body, not exercising, just to really develop and honor this temple that I've been given. And I felt this new awareness, this new drive to be sugar-free, to be healthier, just to create this like optimal health version of myself. And prior to doing this ceremony, I had already been very conscious of my level of health. I ate really well. I I said because I had this flash image of all the like sugar and things that I would also eat. Like I would eat well, but I would also eat unwell sometimes. I would exercise a lot, and then sometimes I would exercise not at all. I would meditate for like 2 weeks at a time, or go to a yoga retreat, and then I would spend like a month or two not doing those things. So for me, it's really a practice of having that balance. And after walking away from this ceremony, I had this new like drive to master my impulses, to master these cravings that I had to consume sugar or coffee, or to just not fully act in my best interest. And it was interesting because as I went through this process of really connecting with, okay, well, how am I fully going to implement this into my life? Like, how is this something that I can truly take on? And I just started to become very aware of everything around me externally that was making it difficult for me to achieve this for myself. Say if I would go to a party and there would be like sugary snacks, like that's the only thing that would be served, or maybe like one vegetable tray. Or I would be hanging out with my friends and they would all be smoking weed, and I was like trying not to smoke weed at that time. Or I would like want to do something fun and exciting, like go for a hike or a jog or like an adventure with my friends, but they weren't at a level that was necessarily as active as I was. So the activities that they would suggest would be more like watching a movie or just hanging in. And so I found myself just getting so angry at the environment that I was in. I was getting angry at society because they didn't have the same level of awareness, or have the same, they didn't place the same level of importance on creating this health for themselves. And so I truly felt like because they weren't taking full action on their health, that it was just pulling me down, and it was going to be impossible for me to achieve the level of optimal health that I wanted to achieve. And I was just feeling so much anger and so much bitterness and so much resentment for the way that other people were living their lives. And I kept judging them and being like so angry about it. Like, why won't they change? Like, why can't I just change them? But also feeling this resistance of like, it's not my place to express how they should be living their lives, but was just silently holding all of these emotions, all of my thoughts, all of these stories in because I didn't want to offend other people. I didn't want to impose my beliefs on other people. And I knew that if I did anyway, they weren't really gonna like believe it. And so this probably went on for a number of years, I will admit, just like harboring this anger and resentment for the way that society had been built, and just seeing the pain that other people were experiencing from my perspective because they weren't actually taking care of their health. They weren't exercising. They weren't eating properly. They weren't like cutting out their addictive behaviors, whether it was like alcohol or weed or coffee or sugar, just allowing their impulses to run wild. And at this time, especially around when I had first sat in ceremony, I had a number of members in my family who were nearing their end of life. They had passed away because of like a life of abusing themselves, essentially, just not taking care of their bodies. And I was just so angry because it reminded me of all of the times in my life that I have seen people that I love suffer because they hadn't been fully taking care of themselves, even though they may have been putting in the effort, but in my head it was never enough. They weren't doing enough. They didn't care enough. And I wasn't really putting into perspective that full image of why that was the case. I just saw this like, oh, they don't care, they're not like putting in the effort or whatever. So these were all the judgments, the stories that I had in my head that honestly like made me feel really disconnected from society. And this is where the vulnerability aspect comes from for me, because I was definitely judging like almost everyone in my life after that period of time. I was in many ways saw myself as being better than them because I actually was taking care of myself. I was going out for jogs, I was going to the gym, I was like doing all these fasts, I was eating really healthy. Like I was committed to creating more health for myself, even though I kept slipping into these patterns of, you know, being really healthy on the one hand, but then like binging on junk food for like a week after that. So it was still like I was still experiencing this imbalance. And this is where the shift really occurred for me, because I had this awareness when someone in my family was diagnosed with cancer. And this was after these other few people had passed away. And to me, it was just like the breaking point of like, I'm just like so fed up with society, with the way that people are treating themselves, with the way that like life is just progressing. Like I'm just so fed up. Like what can I do to change this? And it was in one of the classes that I had taken studying EFT, which was actually based around the principle of Ho'oponopono. And I realized in that class, in that session that I went to, that I cannot change people outside of myself. In fact, it is not my job to change people outside of myself. And the more I try to focus on changing people outside of myself, the more I'm going to experience a feeling of disempowerment, feelings of anger, feelings of unworthiness, and just feeling of, it's like this goal that I could never possibly accomplish. And after this class, it just switched my awareness to recognizing that other people, not my responsibility. Other people, not my problem. Like, I cannot change what other people do with their lives. But what I can change is what I do with my life. And so when I had that awareness, I recognized that all of the anger, all of the judgments, all of the bitterness, the resentment, the whatever that I was experiencing towards these people outside of myself, because they weren't taking care of their health, they weren't like exercising, they weren't treating their bodies with the care and respect that I felt they should. I switched that around and recognized that that anger, that resentment, that bitterness is actually because I'm not doing that. Because I still hadn't been able to fully commit to exercising every day, or fully commit to meditating every day, fully commit to not consuming sugar, not smoking weed, not drinking alcohol, not doing all of these things that in my head were the reason that people are getting sick. And so it put this new awareness in me to have that shift of recognizing that it's really not about what anyone else is doing, but it's about what I'm doing. And that anger that I was projecting onto them and judging them for was actually a reflection of the anger and judgment that I have for myself. And as I have gone through these different struggles and patterns of trying to heal my body, trying to create some kind of structure that I can actually stick to, it gave me a new level of awareness for why these other people are stuck in these cycles as well, why people will just drink themselves to death, why people will smoke weed or have this pull to get high every day, even though they've had a significant illness as a result of it, why people still eat food that is clearly making them sick, giving them like heart issues, digestive issues, diabetes, like all of these different illnesses. But I see these people stuck in these cycles that just keep repeating themselves. And so before I would get angry at those people thinking like, oh, they're just too weak because they can't break out of those cycles, when really I was judging myself for being weak. I was angry at myself for being stuck in those cycles and for still not committing fully to myself, to still not breaking out of them. And so the more I have been able to change my awareness, to let other people be other people, they can do their thing, I cannot change them, and I will create my life the way that I want to, because I know that when I focus my energy on me, this is when I feel the most empowered. This is when I feel the most loving, supported, and connected to the universe at large. When I take full responsibility for what it is that I'm experiencing, whatever judgments I have, whatever emotions I am feeling, that is mine. That is mine to take care of and no one else's. There is nothing that anyone can do outside of myself that cause me to feel a certain way, that create certain beliefs in my brain. It's all me. It's all my responsibility. And so the biggest awakening, the biggest realization that I had from doing these different plant medicines, starting this journey of awakening within myself, was recognizing that I can't change other people. I can't put my energy into changing other people because there is no one else. There is no one else except myself. And when I change myself, my external world will change as a result of that, because I see what I create. I see what I feel. I see the beliefs and I project the beliefs, the stories, the realizations that I already have within me. And so if I focus on changing those stories, those beliefs, that programming that I have within me, then my external world will change as a result. But if I try to change the external world before doing the internal work, then I will be perpetually stuck in a cycle of suffering. So, I mean, that in and of itself is a whole new level for me. It's a whole new level of responsibility. But I feel so grateful for having this awareness, because it actually helps me to feel more empowered. It helps me to feel more in control. Even though I still haven't mastered the self-discipline aspect, I know that I'm getting there because I'm choosing to believe that. I'm choosing to take action on it. I'm choosing to commit to it every single day. Even if I step off, even if I go on a little bit of a journey somewhere else, I know that I can come home to this. I know that I can come home to myself. And the more I learn to do that, the more everything else will just fall into place. So, that is the biggest insight, biggest awareness that I have had. And I would love to hear your thoughts, your comments, or even share your own experience and let me know if this relates for you. All right. Much peace and love, beautiful humans, and I look forward to just connecting with you on another time. Take care.